Hello everyone, welcome to the Redmen TV. It is the deep dive. I'm Chris Page. That man with me today, as normal, is Josh Williams, and we're going to be looking at a little bit of a problem that has reared its ugly head once again, and that is the right-sided issue defensively for Liverpool. Thought Arne Slot had sorted it out?
Yeah, well, I think we might have mentioned it on this show at some point that it got to 15 games in or something, and I felt like the whole Trent right-sided thing that opponents had used against us for years and years under Klopp, it felt like that just disappeared. It felt like it weren't happening, and if anything, we were suffering down the left, where roughly where Robbo is. We were suffering maybe because of the press. We did a show on that as well, but the right-sided thing, I thought, disappeared a little bit, but lately it's kind of came back. Not just the Man United game, there was a game before that as well, which we're going to touch on, but mounting evidence, and it's not good.
Yeah, and the more teams see that problem, the more they'll look to sort of take advantage of that problem as well. As you mentioned, probably Fulham was the first good example recently. Manchester United try and do similar things. So should we look at the Fulham game first?
Yeah, let's go back to the Fulham game. So obviously we are going to touch on Man United. There's plenty to touch on there with that one. But for me, the first concern kind of emerged regarding this weakness when we played Fulham. I think we were at that game.
Yeah.
I know I was. I don't know if I was with you or not. But that was the game where Anthony Robinson, had the stormer. He gets 2 assists in the game and he overlaps every 2 seconds. Liverpool did go down to 10 men, to be fair, but at the time, even when we had 11 men, this was definitely like a tactic imposed by Marco Silva, and on the day it definitely worked, didn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So do you want to go to the first viz to sort of showcase what you're talking about first and foremost?
Yeah, so this is the first viz. This is 11 minutes into the game, and as you can see there, Trent is kind of overloaded by Iwobi and Robinson, who is on his bike in the process of overlapping there.
Yeah.
I think I'm just getting it up now. Yeah, so if you focus on Trent there, if you kind of zoom in on him or whatever, you can see he's kind of retreating there. Now,
but he's backpedaling.
He's backpedaling, yeah. So the reason he's doing that, if I was able to show the clip, that's because he initially went to close down Iwobi, and then because Robinson goes, Trent realises it's 2v1. He's outnumbered, so he has to retreat, and that was an early indicator. I'm not sure if they scored from this one, but that was an early indicator that Robinson's going to go. Fulham are going to use their left-hand side, our right-hand side. And it was a recurring theme throughout the game. And if we move on to the next viz, right, so this is another example further into the game where Trent is in that position that no one wants to be in, where you're in no man's land a little bit, caught between 2 posts, where, similar to the last viz, he's got Iwobi and he's got Robinson, and he's kind of torn between who to go with. It looks like he's choosing Robinson in this situation.
He does. I remember this one so well.
Yeah, I do. They scored from this.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think our right-sided centre-back there, is that Kwanzaa?
Yeah.
Kwanzaa is never getting to Iwobi. So straight away there,
it's a poor decision, isn't it, straight from the off there, because I think he's gone to close a ball down that you're never going to close down, and you've left the player on the halfway line onside.
Yeah.
It is your responsibility.
Yeah, I have a slight bit of sympathy, simply because it's a lose-lose situation now. So if he goes and takes care of Iwobi, Robinson is then free on the ball in acres of space. If you look at the space there, if Trent wasn't there, if Trent was marking Iwobi, he'd be in tons of space, and Robinson would just carry it to Liverpool's final third. So regardless, he was going to lose, but by making the decision that he makes, he did kind of sell himself. If we move on to the next viz,
sorry, could you mind if we just go back quickly? I'd just like to highlight on this one as well. You make an interesting point about it being lose-lose. I think that's correct. And the reason I think that I personally would have gone back is because you are in a 6-on-5 there. Fulham have a numerical advantage over us. You can see the one right under the FUL for Fulham, player right under there. 2 obviously below that. 3, 4, 5, there's 6 of them, isn't there? And there's only 5 Liverpool defenders. I personally would have been like, get yourself back to give you a little bit more security. But you're right, it is a lose-lose situation, and it's because they have a numerical advantage.
Yeah. Well, we had a man sent off as well, which obviously didn't help things. And if you move on to the next video, you can see the kind of product of that move. This is like 3 seconds later. Robinson has gone. And you can see Trent there just not able to keep up with him. I think he tries to pull him back and fails. And I think Iwobi proceeds to play a ball to Robinson there in behind. And Robinson cuts it back across. And I think that's Muniz. I think he finishes with like a bit of a back heel deflection type thing and he score. I think. So that was an initial warning, if you want. That like... Well, it wasn't a warning because we've seen this happen before, but that was, in my opinion, one of the first few times this season that we've seen a team almost go back in time to cause Liverpool a problem, as in, well, who's our worst defender? It's Trent. Let's just overload him. Let's just target him. Fulham did it and scored twice. And I think before we move on to Manchester United, I would be very surprised if Ruben Amorim's game plan wasn't in some way inspired by what he saw from Fulham. You know, it was really effective.
I think you're absolutely spot on. I think, you know, obviously you mentioned the fact that we went down to 10 men does skew things slightly. Probably at the time I think we did a show on this actually, maybe on Plus, and I think one of the things that, you know, we were thinking at the time is, well, it does skew it because you go down to 10 men, doesn't it? It's more of a blip there. But to then see it again against Manchester United and to see it so well executed against us as well because of Bruno Fernandes and Diogo Dalot. I mean, the two of them just had a bit of a field day on a day when Trent was completely off the boil.
Yeah. Well, in this Fulham game, Trent was bad in the game. But his struggles were emphasised because Fulham kind of tactically exploited them almost. So yes, he's bad defensively, I think, generally, but he was made to look even worse because of tactics. And then we move on to the Man United game, and it was similar. You know, he was abysmal, honestly, really bad. I'd go as far as saying it's arguably the worst I've ever seen him play. Yeah,
I agree with that completely. Yeah. Said it on the podcast on Monday. Still got dogs abuse for not going hard enough about how I thought his performance was. But anyway, it was shocking on the ball. That was the biggest thing. Like I've seen him put that defensive side of thing in.
I felt even more angry by his defensive game. That clip for the Martinez goal. Oh mate, I can't watch it. It's so painful to watch. Like I'm kind of holding back calling it a disgrace. I don't think his performance was necessarily a disgrace. I think that's maybe a bit too heavy, but the Martinez thing where he's just stood there watching Bruno and he just kind of guides him into the box, it's bad, that.
One thing I will say on that though, like Gravenberch was there as well, and there was a third Liverpool player as well. Like, can you categorically say that it was just Trent that was bang out of order then?
I think Trent though, if you just watch Trent and track Trent, it's not defending. It's like a gesture to suggest I am defending when you're not really. There's a moment where he can make a stab at the ball, doesn't. It's just way too easy. You got to get tighter. You got to be more aggressive. You got to make it more difficult for the opposition if they're in your final third. When Bruno gets the ball, get on his toes immediately. He's not going to dance past you, Bruno Fernandes. You're quicker than him. Just at the absolute worst, show him on the outside. But yeah, it's not great. But this performance generally was awful. And then, again, like Fulham though, it can be emphasised to make you look even worse through tactics, and that's what United did. So it was a combination of him being bad and United playing on it, which made it just create this
almost
cocktail of
worse, yeah. I think if you can go to my laptop here, Aaron, please, mate, just to highlight the point, I've got the heat maps up from Bruno Fernandes and Diogo Dalot there, and you can see that both of them are in the same area, aren't they, attacking Trent Alexander-Arnold. You can see that from the heat maps. The two of them are covering the same ground. almost exclusively where they've had the touches in the attacking third. They're over on that left-hand side, Trent's right-hand side, of course, our right-hand side. So that's made it difficult. And if I just bring up Mazraoui and sort of compare him, like he's nowhere near as advanced as Diogo Dalot. So they've kept that safety net back on the right-hand side with Mazraoui. So they're still in a bit of a four at the back. And then on that left-hand side, they're really overloading it. So they've used the entire team to really attack Trent.
Yeah, it wasn't great. If while I'm speaking now, you want to get up between the posts on Twitter.
Yeah.
I used to write for them, but they do pass maps.
Yeah.
Yeah. They do their own pass maps.
Yeah, I remember them from when it was T-Stegen 23 or even before that, wasn't it? Like,
but there's a nice pass map that visualises how United are left side heavy and how Bruno is drifting over towards who was he? Towards Dalot.
Got it up right in front of you now, yeah.
Yeah, so you can see the skew.
And there's the triangles as well, isn't it? There you can see that. Is that still? Was it T-Stegen?
It was 11 Stegen 11.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah. I used to always like. Obviously, I think it went to this, didn't it? After a while and stuff. That perfectly does sort of prove the point. And the thing with these pass maps from between the posts here is the thickness of the lines annotates more passes between them. So you can see that Diogo Dalot to Bruno Fernandes and Kobe Mainoo are making more passes as a group than any other players on the pitch.
And the sizes of the dots as well, the sizes of the bubbles, visualise the number of touches. So again, you can just see the skew. They're not particularly interested in going down Robertson and Van Dijk's side, even despite Robertson having a bad season so far generally. This was very, very Fulham. Very, very attack Trent type thing, and it definitely worked. And we have got a viz just to visualise roughly what it looked like. Plenty of times Trent was kind of in that situation again where he's got, rather than having Iwobi and Robinson, this was Bruno and Dalot, and Slot was keen in his presser to emphasise the level of them players. He kept saying that they were Portuguese internationals, and even Diogo Jota doesn't get a game for Portugal and stuff, so they're good players. So that's true. And Liverpool, Jamie Carragher did a really good piece yesterday on Monday Night Football on the tactics behind it, and I think Amorim, to be fair, won the tactics on the day, and that allowed United to at least compete with Liverpool. So there's an element of that where Trent's caught between posts and stuff like that, doesn't know where to go, doesn't know where to stay. I think a lot of Liverpool players were in that mould in this game because of United's system, but still, you can pass the ball to another red shirt. You can track back with all you will, with all your might and all that, and there was just lacking in elements of that. So, and it was terrible timing as well, obviously, because Real Madrid.
If there's one game that you want to, as a Liverpool fan, put your all into, or be seen to put your all into, it's Liverpool, Manchester United, and it's Liverpool Everton. They're the two games, aren't they? You know what I mean? And unfortunately for Trent, it will naturally be linked to the fact that he's had his head turns in Real Madrid and all this type of stuff. It was a terrible timing for your worst game of football at the club. That's for sure. Yeah. And I think the other thing there is, like, his game, like how he sort of tries to get out of a bit of a slump is a Hollywood ball.
Yeah.
And it just wasn't working as well. Because you can hit one good ball and then all of a sudden it just turns and there's 3, 4, 5 off the back. But everyone was shit. Everyone went to a Manchester United player. And the other thing about the way that he plays, actually it's more the way that he runs, is he just runs like he doesn't give a shit anyway. Like he's just a dead lethargic player, which is great when you're playing well. But it's the most maddening thing when you're playing badly, and it looked for all the world like he just didn't give a shit. Well, and that was a real problem for Liverpool's fans on the day.
Well, he played for England a couple of months ago, and Roy Keane did the game, and Roy Keane said, like, it looks like he's got a bit of a swagger about him, the way he runs and things like that. I think he likened him to John Wayne, actually, in the commentary, or in the post-match, or whatever it was. But as you say, when it's not working for you, and you're having a bad game, that suddenly flips, and you look like you don't really care. And I'm just getting up his passing numbers now. I think his long passes in particular were not great. So he attempted 16, completed 6. So a completion rate there of under 38%, and I think the Martinez goal is a failed Trent clearance that just goes. In fact, I don't know if it's cleared.
It goes into the middle of the park, doesn't it?
I think Martinez sweeps it up. I don't know if he wins the ball and then it goes from there.
He beats our man to the ball, doesn't he?
Yeah, and there was a moment towards the back end of the game. Again, this is being clipped for everyone to see, where he's really high up. We're in the final third. Trent just gives it away. I don't know what he's trying to do. Makes Van Dijk run backwards 60 yards, and then Van Dijk just stares at him, just a death stare. So as if to say, "What are you doing, mate?" And
I don't know whether the telly coverage showcased this, but like there was at least 4 or 5 occasions where Van Dijk was screaming at Trent, and I mentioned on the podcast yesterday there's a point where Van Dijk was screaming at Trent, and Alisson goes over to Trent and like pats him on the back to like try and G him up a little bit the other way. So I don't know whether that was showcased there, but obviously it was a thing that was happening throughout the game. And I think, unfortunately, you know, the space that he's vacated means that the second goal, Konate has to get across, can't get across. Robertson doesn't cover himself in glory either, attempting a block there. The ball sort of P-rolls past Alisson Becker, which is gutting as well. And before we sort of move the conversation on a little bit about maybe how Liverpool can try and fix that. I think it's also worth remembering that, like, you know, worth asking the question, so do you actually think that was a stinker of a performance because Real Madrid are interested in Trent, or was that a bad day taken advantage of by Manchester United's tactics?
I think it's hard to say, to be honest. Generally speaking, I am the type of person who absolutely thinks that transfer interest and all that stuff is just complete noise. I think it's just nonsense, generally speaking. I think once you're on the pitch, just get on with it. I don't think it impacts players. But looking at the performance, maybe, I don't know. It was that bad that it's possible. But then part of me also thinks, right, Man United exploited it tactically. The weather was horrendous. He does take a blow to the eye, you know, relatively early on. I think like on the touchline where the snow is and that, I think he goes out and you know, something like that with the advertising hoardings and stuff, and it did seem to bother him a little bit. They had no Szoboszlai on the pitch. Szoboszlai covers him a lot. Curtis Jones took his place, and Curtis Jones was terrible as well. It was Konate's first game back in a while. Tough first game back. So, you know, there's some factors in there that could have influenced this. I am reluctant to say it's because Real Madrid are interested, but he's now got to go and deliver to make sure it was just a coincidence. You know what I mean? If he goes and looks bad again, I think what the problem is for me, you can play poorly, but if in your mind, let's say you've checked out, or if in your mind you know you're leaving in a couple of weeks or a couple of months or whatever, it's more like when it's going bad, you're a bit like, can't be arsed with this. Can't really be bothered. Getting off soon. It's sunny in Madrid. You know, things like that. Whereas, if you know you're staying, you're absolutely committed to the cause, and you know, it means everything to you and all that. If it's going badly, maybe humans are just a bit more inclined to keep going. Yeah. Almost, if you get what I mean. I
must admit, I think everybody's got, probably everyone of working age in this country, certainly, and probably around the world, will be able to understand this analogy a little bit. I like to think of myself as a hard-working person, and I've handed in notices in places, and I've had in 3-month notice periods in places, right? And I have gave my fucking all for about 2.5 months. But when you get into those last 2 weeks, it's impossible.
Yeah.
And that last week, you may as well not be turning up.
Yeah.
Like, I know exactly. And I'm a hard-working person who believes you should go in and work hard, and I can't do it. You know what I mean? And like, there may be an element of that. The thing is, right, if we were judging Trent Alexander-Arnold on one game for a deep dive, the first thing you would say to me is, not enough sample size. And I think, and people aren't going to like this, you might be right to suggest that he's checked out now, but you might be wrong as well, and you're only going to find out in the fullness of time. You're going to need 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games after Real Madrid can speak to him to find out the answer. as I say, you might think it and you might be proved right, but I don't think anybody can categorically say that he's checked out now.
Yeah.
Because the sample size is too small. What you can say is it was fucking terrible.
Yeah. I think the Madrid incest, right, I don't think that would not have any impact whatsoever on your ability to make a pass.
No.
It just doesn't. So them Hollywood passes he was trying out were failing. That's not Real Madrid. That's not transfer incest. That's just having a bad day. Where I think the incest potentially has a slight impact is what I've just mentioned there, where you're defending, so you're tracking back 40 yards, you're getting tight to your man and things like that. I think in them moments maybe where you're calling upon like the fire inside you. If the fire's gone out and you just, like you said, you've handed your notice in type thing, it maybe is it's a bit difficult to call upon that fire. But his performance on the ball, I don't think can be explained. I don't think any footballer, even if you're moving from, I don't know, Accrington Stanley to the Harlem Globetrotters or something like that, and you're making that kind of step up, I still think anyone on the ball is always going to deliver what they can deliver. It's the defensive end, I think, where you've got to grind a little bit.
Yeah, dig deep.
Yeah, where you'll be lacking a little bit if you've lost interest. But I just say it's not really enough evidence, is it? It was a damning piece of evidence, but it is just one game really where we saw it. And the Fulham game, I don't think you can. I'm not sure the Fulham game's application. I think it was just we got done tactically. We had 10 men, and it was one of them.
Yeah, I think. So okay, well let's look at the as an Achilles heel then, Josh. What do Liverpool do? Because I do feel like this could be something the teams are trying to exploit now. Are we just going to say Trent's going to sit here and be more of an auxiliary right back even more so this season than we've seen? Or is there anything? Is it just down to, Dom Szoboszlai has to do better, Gravenberch has to do better, Konate has to do better, Trent has to do better? Or is there something tactically that you think Slot will look to do?
It is difficult. Like, I think one of the initial perks of Slot, I think, was just keeping Trent in position, keeping Trent as part of a back four, in touch with Konate, not like roaming up here, not drifting into the middle too much, just keeping your back four as a back four. We did a show last week on Luis Diaz doing false nine stuff and that. He received a bit of stick I've seen on the back of the United game, and people don't want to see it again now because we didn't really have a striker, we had two left wingers or whatever. But if you're getting Diaz to do that, then you're creating that kind of four in the middle. So if you do that, there's no overwhelming need for Trent to do that. So Trent can stay where he is. Maybe don't advance as much, in the next couple of weeks, potentially, something like that. Because I think a lot of it stems from potentially, not necessarily being out of position, but, the roaming into the midfield and the attack and stuff and that. That's good. That's what's going to make you do the recovery runs and things, and maybe tone it down as well with the Hollywood passes.
Yeah.
Because that's where the transitions are going to come. And Liverpool in the first half of the season were really good at not conceding transitions because we were a lot more sensible with the ball.
And I think the other thing as well is, obviously, I think it probably coincides with Konate going missing, but Liverpool start to concede more goals, even as well as Joe Gomez has played. But what we've also seen is Trent more in this position, certainly against Tottenham, whipping balls in and stuff like that. West Ham exactly the same. One thing I would like to do and just bring up, because I just thought about it then, was more from the Manchester United game. I'm going to put their sort of back five in there. Obviously, you got Martinez, it was De Ligt, wasn't it? Harry Maguire, Dalot and Mazraoui. One thing I thought that they did particularly well is Diaz drops in there, but when the ball was fed into Jones after about 12 minutes, Martinez just stepped up and they did that. And I thought that's where we had a major issue in not being able to get Jones into the game and having that security blanket of a back four where Martinez just kept coming in and making it incredibly difficult for Jones. And it felt like because of that, even when we had the midfield runners, after about 15 minutes, they were still getting picked up, whereas that's been working against the back four for obvious reasons. If the player steps out, you've only got three back there and there's space for the midfield runners. So I thought Martinez's job that he did against the midfielder Curtis Jones in this instance was actually quite decent. I don't know whether that was something you picked up.
Yeah, well, Martinez and De Ligt are kind of both given that licence to go and basically go into midfield and follow whoever that he wants into towards the ball and things like that. And I think rather than not getting Jones on the ball enough, I just don't think Jones used it well enough. I think he got dominated by Martinez. I think he could have done a little bit better when it comes to like releasing the ball quicker. He was holding on to the ball. He was doing this kind of street football stuff, and sometimes he goes a little bit galaxy brain with all that. I do think we really missed Szoboszlai in this game. I think, generally speaking, I kind of roll my eyes when you're not playing particularly well and people just immediately go, "Oh, we're missing Jota. Oh, we're missing Elliott. Or whoever's injured, missing badly." Because I think a lot of the time it's just an easy, low-hanging fruit reason as to why you're not doing particularly well. But I think in this game, Szoboszlai, because of the Martinez thing, the running behind thing, the fact it was a bit more of an end-to-end game. You know, when it was an end-to-end game at Spurs, Szoboszlai thrived. But crucially as well, I think Szoboszlai is the best at getting back and helping Trent, which he obviously needs. So there's an element of personnel in there and that, but I don't know. I think my concern moving forward is, number one, Trent obviously can't keep playing like that. If he does, he genuinely comes out the team and Bradley comes in place of him. And number two, because of how bad it was, and it was high profile as well, you know, prime time slot on a Sunday, other teams will have seen that. Other managers will have watched it. So that now is a very easy tactic to employ if you're Forest, if you're Brentford, if you're Bournemouth. We've got those three away sides.
I guess we're going to see it against Tottenham.
Yeah, Spurs, you know.
Tomorrow, if he plays.
Yeah, but yeah, I just don't want to. I just hope that between now, the rest of the season now, we don't start suffering from that, because it's not just the Real Madrid thing. The fact that supporters might now get on Trent's back is a thing. The fact that tactics can exploit it and things, and yeah, it's not good.
No, absolutely. Okay. Well, here we go. We're going to go over to Redmen Plus now.
Still top of the league, though.
Yeah, still top of both leagues. Still in the semi-final of the Carabao Cup, and still the FA Cup still to start. But Redmen Plus this week, we're going to be looking at the free transfer target for Liverpool. Not the lads whose contract runs out at Liverpool. The potential players that Liverpool could sign and speak to, crucially, this month. There's actually quite a few good players there, so we're going over to redmenplus.com now. You can get that. We'll be streaming in about 10 minutes time, or you can do a Redmen Plus video subscription on YouTube if you want. So thanks very much, and we'll see you next time, next week on The Deep Dive. Ta-ra.